right now when I come in Turkey, I saw so many pictures, which was very similar to my situation in a worse condition. Like I saw, the kids talking from Syria. Some of them said, when I die, I will tell everything to God, the Syrian kids who were, killed. So when I saw these stories, I said, I should do something. And that's why I decided to start Migport. Actually, I can explain with Migport as well, because I started Migport when I was a student. Afterwards, I graduated. So usually, like I see from the investor's point, sometimes when they see students, they say, they are students, they cannot do this business, which is a really, really big mistake. And, same happened to me, but I didn't give up. I waited for 2 years after I graduated, and I was working with Migport. And all the investors and all my clients see that, we are really working on this problem. And it's not like a one-time startup. And right now, all of them are working with me as my clients.
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow, and we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact. Before we start, I would like to thank our partner, the Human Security Division from the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland, who made today's episode possible.
Hello, welcome to the Seedstars podcast. My name is Romulo Navarrete, Head of Operations at Seedspace and also running the Investment Readiness Program. And here I have the pleasure to be with Berat. Hello, Berat.
Hello, Romulo. How are you?
I'm very good. And you?
I'm fine. Very energetic during the COVID times.
I know, right? So talking about COVID times, I know that you recently ran a Corona-thon. So before we jumped into Migport and all the migration, let's say, conversation we're going to have today, could you just maybe tell me a little bit about Corona-thon? I'm quite curious.
Thank you a lot for asking. Yeah, I was working on Migport, and we're working on Migport. I realized that we have crisis management experience. And I said, why don't we use this time for coronavirus? And we come up with universities, with the commerce and commerce chambers, with the top companies of Turkey. And we decided to start an online hackathon where startups come together and they find new solutions for our social problems, which COVID has caused. And it was very successful. We had over 1,500 applications, and we had over 150 startups from these 1,500 applications.
And how do the projects look like? Are they promising?
Yeah, some of them are really critical, for the patient and doctors. So because people cannot go to the hospitals nowadays. So they invented an application where you can meet with all doctors online. So that was a winner. Also, we had some tracking applications where when people move into the city, so it can track people and it can warn other people that someone with coronavirus passed from that street. So that was one of the other solutions. So we had also some solutions for the animals, we have street animals in Turkey. And usually people were feeding street animals. But right now, because people cannot go out, no one feeds them. And it's a problem for street animals. So they invented some databases for the street animals. So it was really promising. And I want to thank Seedstars as joining our partner for Corona-thon and becoming our international partner for some of the startups to be in investment readiness program. I'm really excited about it. And so are our startups.
It's a pleasure for us to be supporting this type of initiatives, and especially in these times where a lot of initiatives are happening around the world. And like you mentioned with Migport, you have this experience working with this type of challenges. And it's amazing that startups think about everything. Like I could have thought of myself about the animals that are in the street, which is something that actually, now that I think about it, it might be an issue. So it's just amazing how entrepreneurs can think of everything. But now let's talk about your journey as an entrepreneur. How did you thought about Migport yourself? Like, what is it that triggered within you that you said, okay, I'm going to start and I'm going to run this?
I was born in Macedonia, which is in Southern Europe. And when I was born there, actually we had some conflicts in Macedonia. Uh, I was born during the conflict times. I was raised, and I'm ethnically Turkish and Albanian, which is minority of, minority of Macedonia. When I was in Macedonia, I was minority, and minorities tend to be entrepreneurs. So maybe it's coming from because I'm a minority that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Then I come to Turkey again here to study. But then I realized that even though I'm ethnically Turkish, but I'm not a Turkish citizen. So I realized that I'm a foreigner, and this actually made me an entrepreneur, like what I experienced. And also, this made me an entrepreneur, being a migrant entrepreneur, migropreneur, we call it. Because,
Okay.
like I'm a foreigner myself, and when I meet in Syrians here, with Syrians here, I see myself. I see what I experienced in Macedonia, North Macedonia, by the way. We changed our name. And so I wanted, when I saw their eyes, I saw myself, and it really made me, you know, make me, to take action towards, to do something for other migrants and other refugees. And here I become an entrepreneur.
Okay, so it's mainly because of your experience of being a migrant yourself and a minority, and then when migrating, actually facing the same issue, and with the recent happenings in the last years about refugees in Turkey, you saw yourself portrayed in that. Just a quick question, maybe it's about vocabulary, but it happens to me a lot because I'm also a migrant myself, sort of, from Peru to Portugal. And there is this question around, what are you? Are you a migrant? Are you an expat? What do you consider yourself like?
Actually, I consider myself as a global citizen right now. So, I belong to the Earth, or maybe space. I'm looking even wider with space. We are all aliens, when we think,
True.
because we are part. The Earth is part of the all space. We are all aliens. So it's like one country to call other people aliens, and it's in the Earth. Like I consider myself as a global citizen, and that's in my heart to be a global citizen.
Do you consider yourself somehow privileged that you managed to be one of those migrants that successfully navigated within the different challenges and ended up founding a startup?
Actually, like not like the privilege, but actually it's when you look, it's a disadvantage because I don't have citizenship here. When I run a business, it's problematic. So then I don't have the laws which Turks have, and that also like I was in actually in one of the countries. I won an award, and when I come back, my resident permit expired. It took 3 hours for me to enter Turkey, but I won an award for Turkey in Canada. So, like, actually, like, I don't see it as a privilege. I don't see it as a disadvantage too, because whatever we experience in life, there is a reason we experience it, and that's how I see this all migration, movements. So we experience migration. We are refugees. We are migrants. We are expats. Whatever you call it. If you come from war, you are a refugee. If you are forced to go, you are a refugee. If you prefer to go for economical reasons, they call it migrants. But I call all of them humans, because
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter why you move. It matters that you moved.
Exactly, and I think it's underrated sometimes. Like you mentioned something about the 3 hours that it took you, and I can completely relate to that. Like it takes months. Sometimes we are even locked in the country because we're waiting for just a single paper to go out, and it seems like somehow, like the people or the organizations that are working into the solutions for this, they care about streamlining, automating many things, using technology to to do taxes online, to do education online, and all sort of things. But when it comes to migration or residence permits, it's somehow old-fashioned and traditional, and it's not very tech-enabled, I must say. We still need to go to embassies, provide papers, and it's very physical. And I know that you at Migport detected this, and you came up with a solution. Can you quickly tell the audience how did you come up with it, and how does the solution look like nowadays?
Actually, thank you so much for asking. So refugees who are here with a temporary protection, they are Syrians usually. We call them with temporary protection by law. So they are not as refugee here. They are like people with temporary protection by the Turkish government. So And the Syrians. So when they had to go to another city, they had to get city travel permit offline in a government building. Sometimes it took 15 days, sometimes it took 3 weeks, sometimes, even no one replied because, when you try to do something offline from Excel, of course, you will not be able to, fasten it. And we saw, Migport is an online platform where refugees talk to each other. They come up with social and financial inclusion solutions for refugees. It's very similar to what we did in Coronaton. We do the similar thing ongoingly on Migport. And so they were telling us that we have a very big problem, that they cannot travel cities because of this offline work. There were some business owners and they couldn't go to another city to meet their clients because they didn't get, the city travel permits on time. And just in case, refugees in Turkey don't live in the camps. They live outside of the camp. So that's why they are allowed to travel only in one city independently. But when they go to the other cities, the government has to know it. And this was we write a report about this, and we said, this is a very easy solution. Government has an official website where locals use the website. And we said as Migport, why don't we integrate here solutions for refugees? And the first one to be this to granting city travel permits to refugees. And we have like over 3.6 million Syrians here, which will have a very big impact. Finally, we convinced the government, and they decided to start the website for refugees. And nowadays, the refugees use the website to go to the other cities, and they get the decision in 1 hour something.
Okay, that's quite streamlined now. How was it to work with government on this aspect?
Actually, we are not directly working with government. We provide solutions to them, and it's up to them what to do. So, we have analytics tool where all the organizations, that we have contracts, they can see, the migration flows. They can see the technological solutions, the blockchain solutions. They can also follow, the real problems of refugee skills needs anonymizedly. And we provide those reports to our clients. And, when they saw the solution, they really were convinced about that this solution can happen in Turkey. So we didn't face any problem, but it took 6 months to convince them. It wasn't an easy process.
Did you always know that this is where life would take you as a human being and as an entrepreneur?
Actually, I think, not to know, but we are being driven by, whatever we experience. And here I come. So I didn't I always wanted to do something. So, and I always, challenged myself. I went to study in US, like I said, studied in Turkey. I went alone to come to here to study. Then after studying, I started initiatives. At 18 years old, actually when I was 18 years old, wow. I started another website. Let me explain you a story. I come to Turkey and they said to me, go and get your residence permit. The residence permit is you have the residence permit too, or are you citizen?
Yeah. No, not yet. I have the residence permit.
Yeah, with the residence permit. So I went to get the residence permit in the government building. And, there were 1,000 people before me. I couldn't get online, in line. And the next day I said, it was written 9. I went there around 10 minutes earlier. And it wasn't successful, of course, because...
How early, sorry?
10 minutes before 9. I went there. It was a mistake.
I go at 5:30 a.m. each time I need to renew my residence permit. It's a struggle.
And the second day and third day, I went around 2 a.m. and I slept actually on the street on that day.
You beat me.
Not beating, but the first day I couldn't get. The second day I said, let's go around 6. I went there at 6. I couldn't be successful. And people were finding some, it was the security department, and people find some doors that even security department didn't know. And they were, they were in line before us. So we were in first 50 in the second day, and then realized that we are not even in first 100. So, there were It was really, really complicated. The third day I went so early, and I run very fast in the morning to get in the line. And I got my residence permit. But this pop-up, like said to me, like, I said, why we cannot change this? And I come up with all university students in my school, and I said, let's solve this problem. And they said, how can we solve it? I said, with my team, we can start a website. And that website review like all the immigrants. Turkey has over 10 million foreigners, by the way. They can use this website and get the residence permit. Then next day, we went to meet with the head of Ankara Security Department, which is the migration management, and they are very, very, like official people. I was 18 years old. I went there, and they accepted us because we were, coming from a university board, and we proposed a solution to them. And I said, I explained the same story, like I explained to you, and you explained to me back. And they were convinced in one day. And next month, they opened the website. Today, the website has over 10 million users. I also use it twice.
I come up with it as well.
Yeah, we can collaborate with Migport. So.
Let's do that. Do you think you touched a very interesting point? You were 18 years old. You did it with university students. At any point, did you feel that being a university student and having approached it like I'm a student, we come up with this with other students, was an advantage to the pitch to let's say authorities, or was it rather seen like maybe okay, informal? How was it taken? How was the approach taken?
Actually, I can explain with Migport as well, because I started Migport when I was a student. Afterwards, I graduated. So usually, like I see from the investors' point, sometimes when they see students, they say, they are students, they cannot do this business, which is a really, really big mistake. And, same happened to me. They said, you are a student. They give me awards like the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards for Social Impact. But when it comes to the business, because I was a student, there was a problem. But I didn't give up. I waited for 2 years after I graduated, and I was working with Migport. And all the investors and all my clients see that, we are really working on this problem. It's not like a one-time startup. And right now, all of them are working with me as my clients. So it was as a disadvantage at the beginning. But then, by the time you don't give up, which I really suggest all entrepreneurs, because it doesn't happen in one day. Sometimes it takes even 10 years, when you see the top startups. Not to give up and to continue and turn disadvantages into advantage.
Absolutely. And I think you touched a very good point, which was not giving up. And I will just ask you that in a bit. I would like to ask you, because I see that it has somehow been like a continuous journey to you, like it has been a constant part of your life to be going from one place to another, to be a migrant, to be facing these challenges. But was there any particular point that you felt you had a call, like, okay, I need to devote my life to this? Was there any particular event that made you realize, okay, this is it, I'm going to do this from now on?
Can you explain a little bit more the question?
Yeah. So, when sometimes we think about a project or running or starting a startup or starting a business, and we are motivated to it and we are thinking about it and so on. But there's always like sometimes there's always a decisive moment, like, okay, this happened to me. It could be a particular event. It could be a bad news, an accident, something that happened to you that you said, okay, this is it. From now on, I'm going to do this and start a startup finally that I've been wanting to start.
It happened. Thank you a lot for revising the question and giving me some, let's say, tactics to understand better. Actually, when I was a kid, so during the wartime, I fell from a construction building and then my backbone got hurt. It took me some time to recover. And after I recovered, I was a kid, but I was like a grown-up kid because, I experienced something very serious at a very young age. And then it was during time of the war. So right now, when I come in Turkey, I saw so many pictures, which was very similar to my situation in a worse condition. I saw, the kids talking from Syria, Some of them said, when I die, I will tell everything to God, the Syrian kids who were, killed. So when I saw these stories, I said, I should do something. And that's why I decided to start Migport.
I like what you mentioned, which was grown-up kids, and that you experienced something very serious, very young. And I felt this is the case for a lot of minorities, a lot of migrants and refugees, and sometimes we kind of accelerate the process of maturity. But this is also putting a disadvantage to an advantage. This is also good for the entrepreneurial spirit, I feel, because it pushes you out of the comfort zone. It gives you this maturity that perhaps if you had had a comfortable life with everything at the hand, you wouldn't have. And now going to the point that we discussed earlier briefly about not giving up, it's kind of built up this resilience that we see a lot in emerging market entrepreneurs. But was there any point during this journey with Migport that you had a doubt about continuing, that you doubt yourself, okay, maybe this is hard, this is being a challenge? Was there any particular situation that you would consider that made you doubt about it?
Actually, I had some, of course, during my journey like it has been like with Migport. I started as a student. First year, I didn't work much. The second year, I come up with a new team. We started working for 3 months. Then I went to US. Then I come back. So Migport started like for 4 years. Like if you see the first day of the start, but we were been actively working in 2 years. Okay. In the last 2 years, actually, when I started it, I was about to graduate. I meet with all NGOs. There was a very demand from the NGOs, and then I realized that I'm a social entrepreneur. I went to meet with the investors. I was telling that I'm a social entrepreneur. They were saying, "Then why you are talking to us without listening to my idea?" Then I realized that, because I believe to social entrepreneurship, that can solve many social problems and build sustainable businesses. Like even unicorns, like that's my dream, to build a unicorn social enterprise. Maybe, I don't know whether there is not a unicorn, maybe like impact startups. If you count Facebook as an impact startup, maybe, like social entrepreneurs are successful, but I don't know how social is, any, application. But talking about the social enterprises, so that was very challenging to meet with investors, explaining your business model. So I couldn't fundraise in first year, in second year as well, because of this topic. Then in Turkey, the investors are even more critical than the investors in US and Europe. So like fundraising as a for-profit was really challenging. Then I went to US, United Kingdom. Then I saw that they were very much looking to invest in social startups. In the first day in UK, in London, I was there with Collective Global Accelerator London. They actually proposed me investment in the second day I was in London. So,
wow.
But they wanted us to go to London and not to stay in Turkey, but the refugees are in Turkey. So I couldn't, go there. The problem, what I experienced is that, this kind of investment and investment structure and the readiness for social entrepreneurship. So, but then I didn't give up. And right now the situation in Turkey gets very good. With the Coronaton, we had like organizations like UNDP, Facebook joining as our partners, and Migport started that Coronaton initiative. So I believe that, right now it's better that we didn't give up.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned something regarding how difficult it was to pitch to investors, and then you put yourself as a social entrepreneur, and then not even listening to your idea just because of the cliche that goes around social entrepreneurship. And I think sometimes it's very black or white, right? Like either you are a social entrepreneur or either you are a startup founder or an entrepreneur, but why not they could be together? And this is exactly what we believe at Seedstars, that impact and profitability can go together. Do you see yourself as a very good example of these two aspects of being impactful and at the same time being related to social entrepreneurship and an impact on society?
Yeah, it's something that I'm proud of, because I'm still defining myself as a social entrepreneur everywhere where I go, even though we are an impact entrepreneur, more or less, because we are helping institutions to better manage migration. But at the same time, we do it by taking the core values of refugees into our startup and protecting them and providing their feedback to institutions. Actually, like I'm really proud of this, and I consider myself as one of the good examples. There are so many other examples as well, which I'm proud to see. And I wrote over 10 books, journals about this social entrepreneurship and for-profit business model.
Okay.
So I'm one of the actually, like, let's say, like pioneers to talk about, like, you combine these two, don't run them, differently, because in the end, social impact and actually a startup can go together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it's just in our own minds that we get stuck in the wording and we want to put definitions to everything, whereas we should be caring more about the meaning of it rather than just trying to define. Because if we try to, as a society, define everything, perhaps we wouldn't arrive anywhere. Where can we find the books that you just mentioned?
Actually, it's published by the journals, some reports and some chapters in the books. So ResearchGate, actually, I have all of them listed. And if people want to read it online, so they can just, request from the ResearchGate from my account, and I can give permission to people who want to read it. Otherwise, they have to, purchase it from the journals. But if they request only my part, so I give them access from my ResearchGate profile.
Let's say literature that you have written already, and in your experience, I guess at some point you touched the aspect of the personal journey that it is to be a social entrepreneur and how to get your passion to something concrete. What would be your one single tip to anybody who is feeling bothered by something in, let's say, like a social problem such as migration, refugee, discrimination, we call it, to actually don't give up and continue their entrepreneurial journey?
Actually, it's believing in themselves. Like, entrepreneurs firstly should believe in themselves and then to listen to other people. Because, I'm mentoring so many startups. I have so many mentors, so many, meetups with investors. And, I meet maybe with 2,000, people in entrepreneurship. And all they say are different words. So, like, I think we should listen to everyone, but not act on what everyone says. We should be independent. So, because that's what I say. We have in our brain, we imagine, but people from outside, maybe they don't see what we have in our brain. So we have to explain them easier in order people to understand, as we entrepreneurs, what we have. But in that perspective, if some people didn't like the idea, no problem. Continue and do another MVP. Listen to what they say and try to understand what they didn't understand for the next time, not to have the second failure. So that has been my experience. When I met with an investor, I become friends with them. So I don't ask for money, but we are becoming very good friends. And they have been very helpful for me in terms of, how to pitch to the investors. And that's how I import myself. So, like, I would say, listen to everyone, but don't act based on what people say.
Believe a lot in yourself. Where do you get your energy from? I'm curious, because the migration and the refugees, it must be, in terms of energy and emotional burden, must be quite high. Where do you get your energy? How do you keep up?
Actually, like, if I get unenergetic about the topic, so maybe I would give up. And which, if I give up, so maybe, the problems I solve will not be solved. So that's why I always keep myself energetic. And I always keep myself to believe in this, what I'm doing, so that, I wouldn't give up and I would continue. And so far, I haven't doubted this, because, whenever I meet with a single refugee, if they know me, first thing, we hug to each other. And when I, hug to the refugees, based on what I do, it gives them more motivation to be energetic about the topic. But when you look to the stories, like, first, when I read in the stories from the application, I was crying. Like, I was listening to them, and it was really, really sad for me to listen and to realize that everything on the news, like, I meet with these people digitally, and they explain to me, and they ask help, how I can help them to actually find a mentor for their business. Afterwards, like, this kept me energetic, and this will keep me still energetic, because refugees still are in Turkey, so many problems. Refugees are going to Europe. Still, the number is expected to be higher and higher. So, like, I think I will not lose my energy.
Like concretely speaking, because I guess like this is like the very big idea, like the reason behind and your vision for having a solution for the refugee crisis and migration is something that keeps you the energy. But concretely speaking, is there anything that you do maybe on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, like, I don't know, checking a WhatsApp group, reading, talking to a refugee? Is there something that you do concretely just to maybe when you need some like extra batteries for you?
I do meditation, so I
Okay.
meditate, and so it really helps me to focus and keep me energetic, and also it really makes me to go away from the phones. So I did it like previously, but I wasn't like with the COVID times. I started doing more and more. I do it maybe at least 2 times a day, but before I didn't used to do it. I used to do it less. So the meditation really helped me, and also I meet with refugees regularly, and I listen to them. I drink to coffee with the people who used our application. One of them is Hassan. After he joined our training and our application, he became one of our volunteers, and it has been 2 years. He's working with us right now. He was in UN program representing Migport alone himself when I was in Switzerland last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there alone. He just learned English after joining Migport, so and his English wasn't very good in the program, but he was there for Migport. So this really motivated me to see him come in there without speaking English, and with a very limited English after he joined Migport and started speaking English with Migport volunteers. So it's really this kind of people actually really motivates me.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess it's kind of replicating the success that you had as a founder of Migport to inspire others to also like self improvement and like grow themselves within it, and that. Do you have, by the way, do you have any particular, let's say, case or program within Migport to kind of foster this initiative so that refugees don't only like find themselves inserted in the country and they streamline their processes, but also like to motivate more success cases like yours?
Actually, so that's what we aim, like as a knowledge sharing platform, they to discuss with each other and help each other. We also invite locals, where locals can help refugees, and where refugees can help locals. So when they need something from refugees, there was one local asking, what kind of songs do you like? Because I want to work with Syrians more, so I want to listen, like I want to play some Syrian songs more, and they were sending their favorites songs to the locals. When I saw it, I was really happy that people don't get offended by this, and they are really happy to share what they like. The Syrians were very happy that someone from the locals want to play some Syrian songs in their shops. So we usually, like we always aim it, not only to we of course, like that's our business model, that's how we survive. We don't charge refugees, but we charge institutions, and we do everything according to the what like these banks, international organization, NGOs ask us. We help refugees based on what they ask, and we provide the feedback from refugees based on what they do. But as our social causes, we also help refugees to discuss, and help each other.
Yeah, and this is, I find it super enriching, especially in terms of sensibility and fighting against discrimination or stereotypes that sometimes people have with refugees and so on. I see it in my country. Like last year, we had a huge flow of people from Venezuela being forced to exit the country and going to Peru. And unfortunately, you find all this xenophobe comments and like these anti-migrant thoughts in people. And I think with culture and like fostering these platforms where locals versus people from abroad can interact, can help with it. But how do you deal with this xenophobe or discrimination, let's say, ways of thinking in your experience? What's the best way to approach it?
When I'm in a conferences, so like I always talk about Migport and this migration management, and one of them, said, "What do you think about locals' discrimination towards refugees?" as a question, and I said, "I think about locals, hospitality about refugees." I changed the word, and I said locals hospitality, and I said, "You are hosting here 3.6 million refugees, and there is over 1.5 million irregular refugees in Turkey. And so far, there might have been some problems, but it's not that you are actually, you still tolerate each other. And I said, this is hospitality. This is not actually discrimination. There might be some people who discriminate, but if we generalize the entire nation, it's incorrect, I said. And after the conference, the guy come to me and he said, I thank you for letting me think that we actually welcomed refugees. I always thought he said that we didn't welcome refugees, but now I see that we welcome. And that was something that I really liked, after the conference he come to thank. And that's my tool. Because people might be, like we sometimes do with Migport, like crisis management. We invite locals and we invite migrant refugees, and we make them play role play. Locals become refugees, and refugees become locals.
Interesting.
And they talk to each other, and they try to actually resettle refugees in their cities. But refugees talk as locals, and locals talk as refugees. And then all the people, both in refugees and locals, realize what's about being in their shoes. But in the end, they make a deal. And when they come after the training, they say, right now I can see how we treated other communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with COVID-19, when you were talking right now, I was imagining everything that is happening right now around the world. And so many people suddenly going to supermarkets, not finding anything and having to think about where are they going to go. Somehow they're experiencing what a lot of people, like for example, in the case of Venezuela or in Syria, they experience. Like you go to the local grocery shop, you don't find nothing, you're short of supply, your life is affected, and you don't even wish for this. It just happened to you. And I think it's hopefully with this crisis and this pandemic, we become more sensitive around the world about what we have. I read recently as well that pandemics and this kind of economical crisis tend to reduce inequalities just by exposing human beings at the essential. What are your thoughts on this?
Actually, so like many people were trying to find a shelter. Many people were getting food in their home. And I saw a post on Facebook and they said, right now, when you think about refugees, please remember, what you did during the COVID times.
Yeah.
And I think, many people experienced what refugees experienced, how it is like to think for your life and not to think for anything else. So because when refugees go to their other countries, they actually don't come for pleasure, but they come to survive.
Yeah, it's not that they choose it. Sometimes they don't even have a choice on this. It's great to see how you're relating your personal story, what's happening in the world with actual business that is successful, considered successful. What are the values that drive Migport?
Actually, firstly is, refugees' social cohesion. Secondly is refugees' financial inclusion, for them to have actually financial means and not to suffer with these banks accounts. Then it's, international human rights, both for locals and both for refugees. And it is also ethics and security. And finally, it is, everything to come from the heart and then to be in the startup.
And then to be where, sorry?
In the startup. Firstly from heart, then in startup.
Yeah. Do you have like a way of collecting what's happening on the ground? Because I guess like sometimes there are things that we don't necessarily have the visibility into it, or how do you collect feedback or how you curate it? Because you have this knowledge sharing platform and I guess there's a lot of information flowing. How do you collect and select exactly what the insights that you think are useful to implement or to think about from the heart to then consider it to implement it in your startup?
Yeah, with the recent events, so many refugees, like Turkey announced that they opened the borders, the Greek borders, and many refugees around, like if I'm not wrong, it was around like 140,000 refugees went to the Greek and Turkish borders. And during those times, so we saw so many refugees actively using like Migport and telling us what they experience, because they said, this is what we experienced here, just help us. We started writing reports about what's happening there. We shared it with our clients. And it was very interesting. So refugees were using our Instagram channels, our Facebook channels, our other channels. They were telling everything what they experienced in the borders. And we had better insights from the actually very big international organizations, because they send us the videos, they send us everything what happened. And in our reports right now, we have the most updated numbers and the insights from the grant. So actually we didn't pay anyone for that, and people was doing it just voluntarily, because they believed to us that we will go to speak with European Union and other organizations for the sake of refugees. And we did. After they give us the information, we provided reports to the top European Union organizations.
Great. Good example of how to use social media for the good, I guess. Berat, I wanted to first recognize you as one of our heroes. You are one of our Seedstars heroes, and I'm personally very touched by the vision of Migport, and I can definitely relate to it and see the impact that you are doing. Who is your hero?
Actually, I have two heroes in my life. Both of them were born where I was born. I don't care about their nationalities, but I care about where they were born. Actually, personally, I don't care about where people born, but these are two of my heroes. The first one is Mother Teresa. Right now, she's Saint Teresa, I guess. And actually, she went to India to help so many kids, and she was one of the first people in Europe to tell about how hungry are people all around the world. And she devoted herself in letting people know that people are hungry. And right now UN is working on zero hunger. Maybe it's because of the Mother Teresa and based on her social initiative. And she went to India actually to help people. And we have Alexander the Great, who was born in the Macedonia, Greece, Bulgaria, that area. So I'm not going political right now. But he was, in that region. He was born there. And where I was born is very close to where he was born. Maybe, if you look, our ancient ancestors might be even the same people. So actually, also, Alexander the Great was one of the first travelers. He went to India, but he was there as, conqueror. Mother Teresa was there to spread peace. I think it's equal right now. One conquered, one spread the peace. And they actually inspired me to do something, like not to cause harm, but to cause social good. And not only to one part of the world, but in entire world.
I guess in this venture of expanding geographically, let's say from Europe to Asia, and all the micro regions that are within, there's a lot of challenges, and one of it is the language barrier. How do you deal with this type of challenges, concretely speaking?
Firstly, we piloted our application with English-speaking refugees, and where many refugees speak actually the basic English. So for the daily issues, they know how to write. Of course, I'm talking for the general aspect, not for everyone. So we used the English, and also we translated. Our volunteers translated from Arabic to English or from Arabic to Turkish. And right now we are aiming to do, a tool which automatically translates. And there we come up with a new algorithm, which, there is less words. And when there is less words, the translated is more accurate. So we use that algorithm, which actually we come up with. And with that, we can do it actually translated automatically. Right now, it's not in the MVP. It's not in the final stage after MVP. So we also have that as well. Like we used, this automatic translation and translation from volunteers.
It's a great example also on how to involve and get involved the people that you are giving the solution to be part of your product, of your startup, and somehow be part as well of the solution. Because sometimes many entrepreneurs think that they are the ones who are to provide the solution to their target market or to the audience, but sometimes your target audience can be involved in helping you provide the solution. And I think as well, this plays a huge role, psychologically speaking, in them feeling useful, in them feeling valued, and so on. So I think this is a very good point that you touched.
And we did the MVP together with our users, like the refugees. So we actually piloted. People say usually do MVP in 2 days. We did MVP in 1 year, and each time we used it with refugees. We went to the field. They used it. They tell us what to do. We didn't tell them what to do. So we give the application, and they told us what they need. They told us how they can use it, and we try to do it very, very, very simple. But still, we are working. So right now, the application that we have is actually made by refugees, not by us founders.
Great.
Even the design.
Oh, really? Like the look and feel?
Yeah.
That's amazing to hear. I'm curious to know if you are the only one in your family who has taken this path, like a social entrepreneur, or is there anybody else within your family that has followed this?
Actually, my sister, she's very young. Right now, she studies in high school. And actually, she joined Migport as our volunteer, and she helped us a lot as our volunteer in our platform. Then she started initiatives in Macedonia. She's right now in North Macedonia. And she started some initiatives there as a social entrepreneur. So together with her, actually, she became a social entrepreneur, and I become a better social entrepreneur with her.
Nice. Your parents must be very proud. What would you say to a young global citizen who sees a problem, is part of a minority and doesn't have the solution crafted yet, but he or she knows that they need to act and they want to do something about it? What would you tell to this person?
Actually, I will tell, follow your dreams and dream. We might be foreigners, we might be locals, but everyone what can do is dreaming. And if we dream, the dreams come true. So dream and take action. So I would say dream for the social entrepreneurship and act for social entrepreneurship.
How can they keep their dreams being sustainable? And here I'm mainly addressing financial sustainability, which sometimes is one of the reasons why some initiatives cannot last for longer, because they cannot maintain themselves.
Actually, in terms of financials, so firstly, family and friends around really worked for me. So that's how I survived. And the milestones are really important. Like I did some milestones, went to fundraise, went to finish the MVP, also went to go and meet with the investors, went to go my clients. I would say firstly go to your clients, try to see whether clients will buy your product. If the clients buy your product, then go to investor and go together to clients so that investor will see that people are buying your product, so you can fundraise. So that has been my way of doing things after being an entrepreneur and seeing all disadvantages. Go there, meet with your clients, understand their problems. If you do a social enterprise, when you meet with clients, go with your target group. Don't go alone.
This case being the development organizations, foundations, and banks.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. How was it to deal with this profile of stakeholders?
Yeah, we are actually busy business to business and business to government. So we are not business to customers. So we don't it's our we have benefits to our target groups, but it's like a tech company. It's not we are not charging anyone for using our platform. But when organizations wants to get the analytics, which is anonymized, and there we have also professors to provide insights. So then they subscribe to it, and they can get monthly subscription to see the financial inclusion, mobility, and social inclusion of refugees. So they can see maps, they can see insights, and they can understand, the target group they're dealing with. They can see skills, needs, and preferences of refugees. So in terms of this is very innovative. They get usually the reports. So we print it and then sell it. So that has been our strategy, because we say this is the website, go and log in there. So they are used to buy reports, not the websites. So we say, okay, you can get it printed too, and we print it. So, but it's, even they are reports, they are analytics.
Yeah, it's quite a sweet deal, I guess, because like you said, for them, reports are the way that normally they buy information for, and this is this format, and you manage to understand it. And at the same time, I think data, in this case, big data, it's a great opportunity, because sometimes social entrepreneurs, they want to do the solution to everything, and maybe just like tracking correctly and gathering data and putting it in a report. That's a lot of value that organizations or foundations can take, and they're willing to buy. So just like having different data points and making sure that you have the right quality data can help sustain the business, like in your case.
Actually, that's also very critical. Like people are making surveys on field, and it only with 500 people. And with 500 people, they try to understand 5 million people. And it's very biased. So even they do the all statistics. So when you look in the end, it's not what really refugees experience, because each of the all the refugees are located in different cities in Turkey. They have different backgrounds, different educations, and so like when you do surveys, you cannot understand their skills, you cannot understand their needs, you cannot understand what everyone experienced in one single day. But with big data, actually, you can aggregate all of this. And now you cannot understand it only in one day, you can understand it for 1 year. Each day, what refugees experience of 5 million. I think this is something that I believe in the big data analytics. Of course, it should be ethical, which I'm working, and I'm part of International Federation of Operational Research Societies of the Ethics Committee. It should be ethical, you should get permissions. But on the other hand, big data actually can save so many refugees. All the grants, there are billions of US dollar grants, 20 billion in Germany, 30 billion in Turkey. If they all use big data analytics, their impact will be much, much higher, and the fund will be more optimized. So they will not actually invest money on the things which is, not very important.
Yeah, I can definitely see the potential in that. And thankfully, we got technology to help us on this now more than ever. What's next? Talking more than ever, what's next in your journey at Migport? What's your provision for the upcoming, let's say, 5-10 years?
Actually, we want to be the source for the refugee skills, needs, and preferences. We want to be actually venue when an organization wants to understand skills, needs, and preferences of refugees. So they can be banks for the fintech, they can be organizations for the big data analytics. So what we want to be is actually to provide feedback of refugees to organizations in 10 years. And when we provide feedbacks, not only provide one feedback, but right now there is 68, around 70 million refugees and displaced people in the earth. We want to reach all, actually 70 million people, and provide their feedback to organizations.
In Latin America?
In 70 million is in entire world.
Yeah.
And we already started doing something in Colombia with MIT University and Oxford University. We did there a conference, how to use big data for mass migration movements. And I was one of the speakers there. I couldn't go, I joined online, but we did a conference with MIT and Oxford University. And the Colombia was very much looking forward to, integrate these new technologies. So we are already right now in Latin America, but we are looking forward to go more, because right now from the Venezuela, so many refugees are in the Latin countries. And what we experienced in Turkey for 8 years or 9 years, let's say, right now the Colombia will experience the same things. Mexico, US, every like the path will be the same. So that's why we really want to go and help the refugees in Colombia, in other countries as well, in Hong Kong as well. We went to Hong Kong before the events. I was there. I met with some organizations, but then we couldn't continue pilot because of the demonstrations. We had to come back. But we are pretty international in these terms. When we started Migport, we traveled to over 20 countries. We are not only a Turkish organization, we are a global one.
Great. And in here, do you have any sort of, let's say, structure or methodology to predict when suddenly there might be a refugee crisis around the world?
Actually, we can not predict, but if we see the movements, I can do pattern. I can understand the pattern. Like from Idlib right now, there is 1.5 million people in the border of Turkey and Syria. 1.5 million. which is, the higher than the population of all refugees in Germany. And, if they go to Europe, I can understand where they will go, how they will go, because, we have the experience. And when I understand it, actually right now, like we are also trying to help the people in the borders so that, if they go to the other countries, everything will not be like a dream. So we try to help those people that, firstly, if you go there, this is what you experience. And I try to help actually those people by actually managing organizations for the actually maybe to have a fair share for the refugees in all European countries, to have like not like to have refugee rights like human rights, which all the organizations should follow. So there is refugee convention of UNHCR, but I think we need refugee rights, which is like human rights, because they are also human, but sometimes we don't see them as humans. So that's what we are trying to do right now.
It has been a pleasure talking to you. You're truly an inspiring entrepreneur, global citizen as a whole, linking what's happening in nowadays society to your own personal experience. So it's been like very eye-opening and inspiring to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining the Seedstars podcast.
Thank you a lot. It was really nice talking to you, and I really enjoyed our discussion today. I'm looking forward to be in the online Seedstars Summit. I'm gonna just like go and meet with my mentors and like watch webinars, and looking forward to keep in touch, Romolo. Thank you a lot. If you have anything with Migport, so you are more than welcome to join our volunteers.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.